to change minds behind enemy lines?
The sole purpose of a gun is to kill.
Or will her own beliefs be shot down in the heart of gun country?
Nobody's trying to take away your weapons.
So by the time we're done with it, we will regulate everything out of existence.
Find out tonight on 30 Days. Whether it's in our country's history books or in our movies, America has been defined by guns. George Washington's musket started a revolution. John Wayne's Winchester won the West. And Rambo's M16s blew away the bad guys. For better or worse, America's had a love affair with guns, and it started a long time ago. Our forefathers gave us the right to bear arms over 200 years ago, but the interpretation of that Second Amendment right is dividing our country. On one side of the firing line are gun control advocates, claiming the popularity of guns is creating a more violent society, and they want stricter regulations. Pro-gun supporters shoot back, saying guns aren't killing people, people kill people, and all gun restrictions will do is make it more difficult for the responsible owners to get their guns and protect themselves. Almost 60 million Americans exercise their Second Amendment right to own guns, making America the most armed society on the planet. But around 30,000 people die from gun violence every year, and high-profile shootings like the recent tragedy at Virginia Tech only widen the gun debate gap. With the stakes so high, is there any room for common ground? We'll find out when an anti-gun pacifist moves in with a gun-loving family for the next 30 days. We found a gun control activist who was willing to take her battle to the heart of America's gun culture.
Reach right.
Pia Lally is a 39-year-old hip-hop aerobics teacher living in Brockton, Massachusetts. Brockton is a nearby suburb of Boston, and like most urban areas, the crime rate is high. Pia has watched helplessly as gun violence has continued to tear her community apart, forcing her to take a stance in the national firearms debate.
My neighborhood is right near the projects, and there's a lot of crime in Brockton.
A 7-year-old boy was shot right here.
I don't really see the need to have a gun.
It's a killing machine.
Guns make all of us more susceptible to death and danger.
In this day and age, the only people that need guns are police officers and soldiers. And those are the people that are there to protect us. And I don't see why anyone else needs a gun.
Pia's viewpoints aren't just political, they're personal.
A person who was very, very close to me was shot and killed by one of her patients. She was a licensed therapist. Rita was my therapist. She was my friend. You can't even put it into words what it feels like to lose somebody so wonderful.
After losing her friend to gun violence, Pia put her efforts into lobbying for stricter gun control laws.
My purpose is to make it more difficult to get a gun.
Before she begins her 30-day journey, Pia invites her family and boyfriend over for a farewell dinner.
I was a Marine sharpshooter. I've fired just about every automatic weapon, and no one should have one of those around here.
It's a killing machine.
Yeah.
That's what it's for. To kill people.
How do you feel about living in a house full of guns?
My biggest fear is arguing with somebody that doesn't have their facts right. That's my biggest fear.
Well, maybe these people have similar views. They just enjoy the skill aspect of guns, or who knows, you know?
I doubt it. I pictured them with a Confederate flag hanging out front, drinking moonshine on the porch. That's so bad. That is so bad.
850 miles from Brockton is the pistol-packing rural town of Leesburg, Ohio, where Pia will be moving in with gun enthusiast Ken Eckermeyer.
It specifically states within the Bill of Rights and the Second Amendment that I have the right to keep and bear arms. It's my right to defend myself, and I have the means to defend myself because of firearms.
Ken is a 39-year-old former Marine who handles freight at the local airport. He lives with his 15-year-old son, Zach, who's been homeschooled from an early age. Ken recently divorced Zach's mom, and since Mom moved out, Dad and son have plenty of time to bond over their favorite pastime, shooting guns.
You squat way down. Pretty much everything Zach and I do revolves around the gun culture.
We use firearms for competition, for recreation.
Now, I would take my hand here.
I use them to teach my son how he can better himself through better accuracy.
So we'll go in and get all that carbon we just blew through the barrel. Can't say I've ever spent a lot of time with anyone that has pro-gun control views.
I would just hope that this individual
would see that, you know, there are responsible individuals out there that treat firearms with a great respect, and to maybe dispel some of those myths that they may have.
Pia kisses her gun-free life goodbye and sets off on her 30-day journey.
Don't hurt anyone.
During my 30 days,
My purpose is to learn the other side, because you're not going to really have a firm argument unless you know where the other side is coming from.
For the next 30 days, Pia will have to live by the following 3 rules. First, she'll have to move to America's heartland and live with a gun-toting family. Second, she'll work at a gun store, which means she'll be responsible for putting firearms on the street. And third, she'll get a crash course in gun handling, so she'll be firing a lot of guns. Leesburg is like many small rural towns in America. There isn't much crime, and a lot of people own guns. Local gun supporters claim the two things go hand in hand.
I can't believe I haven't seen one person in at least 20 minutes. It's like another planet. Why on earth would anybody need a gun out here? Hi.
Hello. Leave her alone. My name's Ken.
Hi, Ken. Nice to meet you. I'm Pia.
Nice to meet you, too. You need a hand with that?
Sure. Thanks. Hi.
This is my son, Zach.
Hi, Zach. I'm Pia. Hello. Hi.
That's the laundry room right there. This is the kitchen. And your room is back here. There's some reading material for you. All firearms related. So why don't you like firearms?
I lost a very, very dear friend 9 years ago.
I'm sorry about that.
She was massacred, sprayed with bullets. When something like that happens, it never goes away. It was 9 years ago, and it never goes away, because every time I turn on the news, I have to relive what it's like.
But does the news ever put the positive side of people defending themselves from violent criminals with firearms?
No, you don't hear those stories, because personally, I don't think there's enough of them. I don't. I
You
think
would
that
be surprised at how many of them there really are. And I understand that she lost someone. Everybody loses someone from time to time. But that's not going to change my view and feeling that I need to protect myself from the criminals. I was brought up in a firearms family. I've trained with firearms in the military, and I believe that we need firearms for personal protection.
protection against who?
Protection against criminals.
Is this a high crime area?
I understand. There is nothing but corn and beans.
You know.
But this is part of my protection. This is where I don't put myself, you know, in dangerous situations.
People that say they need their guns for self-defense, I think they're paranoid. Who are you afraid of? Who are you protecting yourself from? I live 2 miles from where 4 murders in 2 nights were committed, and I don't have a gun.
Ken doesn't waste any time showing Pia his pride and joy, his gun collection.
I mean, I understand how you see this, but I see it as a collection. This is a Mossberg 590, this is a Mossberg 500. This has a more military look to it, and this has a hunting look to it. This is an M4, which is to the current configuration that our U.S. military uses now.
That's a lot of guns.
I actually am uncomfortable being in a house with so many guns. I've seen the ones that are locked. I know that Ken has one on his person. Zach has a couple in his bedroom. And I don't feel safe. I can't believe that I'm doing this.
It's day 2, and before Pia jumps headfirst into gun culture, Ken wants to make sure she can safely handle a firearm.
Rule number 1 with firearms is you always treat a weapon as if it is loaded. Those that have accidents with firearms are irresponsible, or they were doing something wrong with them. I've never shot anybody in my life, and I've never had a mishap. As long as that finger isn't on the trigger, this weapon's not going to go off. I can load it, sit it on this table, and you can sit there till the dawn of time, and it's not going to kill anybody.
The sole purpose of a gun is to kill. That's what a gun is for.
Not necessarily. I took mine out and I shot paper. It's also a sport. I didn't hurt anybody in anything that I did right there. Now you get to touch him. Just got to get a little more comfortable. Relax. It's not going to bite you.
I've just never held a gun before.
But see, you've made strides. You've handled firearms, and nobody got hurt. Those that are pro-gun control like to place a lot of the blame on the firearm itself. We can't place the blame on the firearm itself. It's an inanimate object until someone makes that human decision to get behind it and do either good or evil with it.
Later that day, Ken takes Pia to a fun shoot, a weekend activity where he and his friends load up the arsenal and practice their shooting skills.
Do you know how many other things you could be doing on a Saturday afternoon? It's more fun than you think.
Hearing protection, mandatory on the firing line. Eye protection once you're on the firing line also, please. You can commence firing now!
It was quite surreal. There were pistols, there were revolvers, there were machine guns. There was a guy laying on his stomach shooting a .50 caliber machine gun, I think.
It's a safe environment, which is great, but they just seem like they're playing with toys, and I don't think they realize how serious shooting a gun is.
While everyone takes a break from shooting, Pia gets the chance to meet Ken's parents and ask them what triggered their son's interest in guns.
Ever since he was little, I've got pictures of him in an army hat and whatever. He wanted to be a soldier. He knew that. Well, that's what I say. They were brought up with guns, and we never had an accident in the house.
We go hunting occasionally, and he just started liking shooting.
How can you not like shooting?
If we could afford to do it every weekend, we'd probably do it every weekend.
Yeah.
It's another world. Pretty much everyone I've met has grown up with firearms in the house. A father who had a gun and went to the range, and a grandfather who had a gun and went to the range. A husband or a brother or a sister or a boyfriend. Everybody around me has been in this culture for as long as they can remember. It's so foreign to me.
To get another perspective on gun culture, Pia starts work at a gun store. She meets her new boss, John, co-owner of Peabody Sports.
Smiling back. There's something attached to the word gun store. A vision comes in your mind, maybe it's pawn shop or something like that. I wanted a place that we deal with the discriminating buyer, the professionals, and law enforcement.
I kind of had that peace of mind knowing who I was working with was definitely going to be a legitimate gun dealer. Totally blew my stereotype.
There's almost 100,000 federally licensed gun stores in the U.S., but there's strict guidelines to getting that license and keeping it.
At night, we take all the guns out of the display cases, and then we put those in our vault.
Store owners have to keep extensive records and be prepared for surprise inspections. Federally licensed gun stores are also required to run background checks on every person they're selling to.
I'd like to purchase a firearm.
Before we can do that, we've got to go through the background check.
Pia gets the chance to see how that system works. The National Background Check System is an FBI database that was put into place in 1998 to try to prevent guns from ending up in the wrong hands.
He has to fill one of these out every time he buys a gun?
That's correct. They're asking questions here that is a responsibility, obviously, for the purchaser to answer correct.
Have you ever been committed to a mental institution? I heard that this was on here, but I couldn't believe it. Because I always thought, like, what's a mental person going to say?
The questions are basically leaving it up to the person filling out the application, and the honor system really shouldn't work when it comes to owning a killing machine.
Ready? Yep.
Pia rarely gets out of the big city, so after work she goes on a hike with Zach to take advantage of her new surroundings.
So did you hear your dad last night talking to all his friends and calling like every person he knows?
Yeah, I
to
did.
brag about your rifle skills?
Yep.
So how'd that make you feel? Like I actually accomplished something, made him somewhat proud of me for once. Why do you say for once? It's because I never really do anything to really impress him or anything. So don't you think your dad's proud of you for other things? He's not really interested in anything else I am. My father, in a sense, kind of has a one-track mind.
If and when you ever decided to go to college, that would open up a whole network of new people and friends and different things to do. I hope in my 30 days I can expose him to something other than the world of guns and hopefully get the wheels turning and maybe give him something else to think about.
Shooting a gun is essential to Pia's 30-day experience, and today she'll have to lock and load for the very first time.
I've agreed to this journey. I've agreed to shoot a gun.
That's a powerful thing when you've never done it before.
Every time I hear that sound, I think of somebody being killed. I don't like the sound. It's just not every single time.
Ken invites Pia to join him in one of his favorite activities, skeet shooting, and has Tony from the range show Pia the right way to handle a shotgun.
When you close that gun, it will be ready to fire. Okay, now go ahead and lay it on the trigger. Start your gun up a little higher. And then call pull.
Pull.
How bad was that? Did it hurt?
When I shot the gun for the first time, I just didn't like it. It just made me sad. Or when you've heard gunshots, it's one thing, but then when you're the source of the gunshot, you're the person that shot the gun, and you've never done it before, it's not a good feeling.
Was it just not tight enough, or just the thought of firing?
Just the sound.
The sound? It's just a sport. You didn't do any harm. In my mind, I don't really think it's that traumatic of an experience, you know, unless maybe you've been shot at before. It caught me off guard.
Do you want to take a little break? Just let me know when you want to take a break.
I'm done. Can we take a break?
I'll take all the practice I can get. Was it as bad as you thought?
Yes.
Was it?
Yeah, pretty much.
I mean, we're just shooting pieces of clay. Pull!
They just don't get it. Now, every time I hear a gunshot, I don't think about a good old boy shooting clay pigeons. Every time I heard a gunshot go off, I thought about a child or my friend, and they don't get it.
It's day 7 of Pia's 30 days in America's gun culture, and today Ken wants to let her in on one of the privileges he enjoys as a gun owner.
You ready for your errands?
Yes.
Okay, well, we're going to do something different today, and you get to experience what I experience every time I go out. So I have a pistol and a holster for you to wear while we go out.
I do have a concealed carry permit. I carry everywhere I can possibly carry. One of the biggest things that we've found that has curbed crime is citizens being able to privately carry concealed firearms for their defense.
It'll hook over your belt.
6 million people in the U.S. today are concealed carry permit holders, so they can legally carry a concealed handgun in public.
Now, you can tuck your shirt over it.
Since Pia doesn't have a permit, she can't carry a real gun, so Ken's got her strapped with a BB gun.
Feels odd, doesn't it?
Yeah. I think that if you've got a gun on you, you've got a huge, huge chance that that gun's going to be turned around and used against you.
Some states even allow people to carry firearms Old West style, right out in the open. But keeping it concealed is the choice of most gun owners, giving them the upper hand on unsuspecting criminals.
This isn't something for everybody. You have to know in your own mind that if it ever comes to a situation where you have to use it for self-defense, you will have the ability to draw that weapon and possibly take someone else's life so that they don't take yours.
I'm more paranoid having this thing strapped to my backside. If anything, I feel less safe.
Is this thing on right?
Yes, that thing's on correctly. It should actually tilt a little farther forward.
Does that make you nervous?
No, not really. Have you never carried one?
No.
No? Does it make you nervous?
Yeah, absolutely. To have people with limited amounts of training carrying around guns, that's a dangerous situation for the rest of us.
While permit holders are allowed to carry concealed weapons in public, they've got to leave their guns behind when they go to places that serve alcohol, federal buildings, and college campuses. But since the recent Virginia Tech shootings, it's this firearms ban on university grounds that has become the new focus of the gun control debate. Gun rights proponents argue that an armed student body could have stopped the deadly rampage that took 32 lives. But others say guns have no place on our nation's campuses. There is one state, however, that allows students and faculty to carry concealed weapons on campus. At the University of Utah, Jared Sanos is getting ready for another day of classes. He's got his books, his backpack, and oh yeah, his .45. What do you feel like you need a gun for at school?
Unfortunately, the university, wherever I go, can't have an armed guard by my side at all times. And so that's why I always carry it.
I mean, because you were already carrying, I guess, when Virginia Tech happened.
Yeah, could have prevented more lives from being taken, I would think so.
Yeah. Jared is a member of the Second Amendment Students of Utah, a group that wants to promote students' rights to carry weapons on campus. Today, they're at the Student Union trying to recruit new members. Are you packing right now?
I'll tell you that I am, yes.
Yes, you are.
Yeah.
And so why do you feel like it's necessary?
I think that past events have shown that you can't always rely on the police to protect you or defend you, and so you have to be prepared to take responsibility for yourself sometimes.
But not all students want their classmates carrying guns around.
If more and more people are carrying guns on campus, it's going to become almost a requirement that to feel safe, you have to carry a 9mm.
So where do you stand on this issue?
If we did have a Virginia Tech type event, it's kind of scary thinking of a police officer running in and not knowing who
the bad guy is.
Who the bad guy is.
Yeah.
I'd rather be packing books than packing heat.
After spending more time with Zach and Ken, P is seeing just how much effort they put into their love of guns.
See you later. Have a good day.
It's just really starting to sink in that, you know, Zach is just completely addicted to guns. If he was not so engrossed in this culture, he might have more opportunities available to him.
So what's the purpose? Like, how do you win?
Fighting, blowing stuff up, shooting. It's fun.
I know we talked about possibly going to the college, and I know you probably don't want to, but is it something you'd be willing to try?
Sure. Get
Yeah?
myself out of the house.
Okay, that sounds good.
I'll try it.
Okay, good, awesome. That's
You've
great.
been working with us. I'll work with you on something.
Good.
It's day 11, and P is back to work at Peabody Sports. Today, she's helping John load up for a local gun show.
This is the cash register?
There's about 4,000 gun shows across the country each year. And not only do they give gun stores and private citizens a place to sell, buy, or trade guns, it's also a chance for the gun community to come together and socialize.
The people I saw at the gun show today, the patrons, every single one of them was carrying a gun. They had machine guns on straps. One guy had one on each side. It was extremely disturbing.
It's just so weird to me to see people walking, holding guns. And I know you told me they're not loaded, but it's freaking me out. It's totally freaking me out.
Everybody comes in, gets chopped on that.
Right. No, I saw them checking.
Officers patrol these shows to make sure safety guidelines are being followed and that nothing illegal is going on. Even at gun shows, licensed dealers are always required to do a background check. But that rule doesn't always apply to private sales. Individuals can legally sell guns to one another as long as age and residency have been verified.
I like to see that phone right there, young lady.
Always hand it this way, right?
Thank you very much.
So what are you looking at there? Like, for what?
I teach firearms.
You teach firearms?
Now, how you feel about people selling guns privately?
I'm watching for it.
I sold a gun this morning.
Did you do a background check on them?
No, background check, no. What I did was this. I got his license, looked at his license, make sure he was a Ohio resident.
You copied down his license number, all
I copied
that?
down his name.
His name, that's it.
That's all, his name.
I understand that these private sales are legal, but the problem with the private sales is there's a limited amount of information that gets passed on. And this makes it harder for law enforcement to do their job when one of those guns that was sold during a private sale is used in a crime or a homicide. They can't trace it back.
The gun control crowd believes criminals are getting their guns because there's no background checks on private sales. But pro-gun folks say that isn't the problem, and that only a fraction of criminals end up getting their guns from gun shows. So what are some of the ways criminals can load up on firepower? Well, between 1 and 3 million guns are exchanged every year on the black market. There's also straw purchases, where the bad guys get their weapons from a buddy who can buy them legally. And then there's the tiny number of corrupt gun stores that remarkably end up arming over half of the criminal world. P is halfway through her 30 days, and today she's online, monitoring stories of gun violence back in her hometown of Brockton, Mass.
Ken.
Yes.
There's been 4 isolated killings. One was a woman holding a 4-month-old baby. She got shot in the neck.
These are all by stray bullets. This is like 4 separate incidences.
Okay.
Is there any compromise on your end about figuring out some law that's not going to take away the rights of the good law-abiding citizen, but, you know, not allow this stuff to happen?
Guess what? The only people abiding by those laws are going to be me and my law-abiding buddies. The criminals are going to find firearms.
And 4 women get shot and killed, 1 woman holding a 4-month-old baby. Let's give it a try. This is an epidemic.
I have the right to defend myself against the criminals that are illegally obtaining firearms.
Nobody's trying to take away your weapons.
No,
It's
by the
just a
time we're
sign
done
of
with
the
it,
times.
we will regulate
Well,
everything
I know
out of
that's
existence.
How you feel. I want a sensible gun law. The NICS system across the country, everywhere, no private sales.
Now, I'm going to pay the price, just like millions of other Americans.
We're not going to fix the problem 100%, but wouldn't it be nice if we could fix it a little bit?
How can you see children dying every single day? 15 deaths a day. I don't understand how somebody could have that number in front of them and say, my Second Amendment right gives me the right to bear arms. I really want Ken to see the people that have lost people to senseless gun violence.
In an effort to show Ken and Zach the human cost of gun violence, Pia takes them to meet members of Ceasefire, a Toledo-based group who fight to keep guns off the streets.
It's been 34 years ago now that my first husband was killed. It was a robbery by someone who got excited and started shooting, and he ended up dead at the age of 33.
I lost my son. He had just graduated from high school, and a week after graduation, a car came through the area and just started opening fire and started shooting. My life ended. We, I think, as citizens of this great country, we're responsible for looking after each other. That's what I'm going to spend the rest of my little life that I am trying to do. I'm trying to save kids.
And there isn't any logical reason why gun owners aren't saying, hey, wait a minute, I ought to step up to the plate and do my part too. And that would mean giving a little as far as regulations are concerned.
We have gun control as it is in this country. The criminals have that criminal mind. One way or another, they're still going to get their firearms.
It's like any other disease. I mean, you don't say, gee, we can't cure all cancer, so let's not try.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, we do. And so we try to regulate things where we can.
Do I automatically say, okay, you know, there is a chance someday I'll be a victim? Or do I take the stance and say, I refuse to be a victim?
We have to stop looking at the gun problem like it's a bad guy, good guy thing. It is a public health problem.
They lost a loved one, and that's tragic. And, you know, the reason they lost a loved one is because somebody misused a firearm. So all of a sudden, we demonize the firearm instead of the individual that used it.
You've got 3 people, okay, that have lost somebody they love, and they're survivors, but they've decided that they'll go past that, and they're going to do things that are good for everybody. You are only going to lobby when it affects you. And that is the biggest difference that you're going to see between your mindset that is filled with fear and ours that is filled with grief.
It's day 20, and Pia has convinced Zach to lay down his weapons for the day and take a campus tour at Ohio State University in Columbus.
We have a great day planned. Just think of it as an adventure.
Let me out of the car. I can go clean my rifle.
I know college may sound great for some people, but I've just really never been fond of schools in general.
Hi, I'm Pia.
Pia, nice to meet you.
This is Zach.
So you guys ready for a tour?
We're ready.
Well, this is kind of the heart and soul of Ohio State's campus. It's surrounded by academic buildings. While we're here in the Youngkin Success Center, this is pretty much a great building with a lot of different resources for students to help them make that transition from high school to college. So what are the other things that you're interested in right now?
Go ahead,
Maybe?
tell them, be honest.
Guns. Guns, okay. We have a pistol club on campus. We actually even have a rifle team that's a varsity sport.
I learned some interesting bits about Ohio State that I never knew there's like a pistol club or anything. There are more privileges than what I thought there was.
Yeah, thanks for coming.
Bye,
See ya.
thank you.
Take care.
What'd you think?
It's fun. Campus is actually a lot larger than I thought it was going to be.
I know a lot of people that are very successful today that have never been to college. But you'll find out that there are a lot of jobs out there that require college. I mean, is it something that you thought you might be interested in someday?
Still one of the FEs.
Pia showed Zach what college is all about, and that was great. If Zach just finds something that he enjoys doing and he pursues it to the best of his ability, then, you know, that's all I can ask for.
You always know that it's an option out there if you want to potentially take on a career where you're going to need higher education.
It's day 22, and after another day at Peabody, P is finally ready to give guns another shot at a nearby firing range.
Good. Good. I could see how if you were raised hearing those shots all the time and they didn't represent the sadness and the violence that they do to me, then I could totally understand why people would become enthusiastic about it, because it does require a certain skill.
Easy. There you go. Perfect shot. Step back a minute. Look at that. All of them where they're supposed to go. That's tremendous.
It's a skill.
This is the last place in the world I'd want to be if I had my choice, but on the other side, I was like, isn't it funny that I'm actually good at it?
Hi, baby. Hi. I was damn good. So.
Wow. Not bad.
I know. See, now you're starting to enjoy it and get good at it.
I didn't say I was enjoying it.
You got skill.
I got skill. Well, you got it.
But I can understand when you're good at something, it feels good, you know? And you love it, so, and you're good at it, so that must make you feel even better.
It was traumatic at first, which I understand, but for somebody who had never fired a firearm before, you've made great strides.
P has gotten more comfortable with shooting, but she's still not convinced guns have a place outside the firing range.
One of the most common excuses I've heard for owning a gun here is self-defense. So I found someone who protected and defended his life and his entire family's life by owning a gun.
On November 19th of 1995, we had an individual who had been stalking us for 15 years. He broke into our house after he had murdered 4 people already that night, including a mother, a father, and a 5-month-old baby girl. And he kicked in our back door. Judy, my wife, and my 4 children were all in the kitchen. And we shot it out in the kitchen. And I hit him once in the chest, and he had a bulletproof vest on.
Oh, my God.
But it was enough to knock him backwards out the door, and it stopped the attack.
Wow.
And he was captured by the police. He put 3 holes through the back door.
Oh, wow.
This is where my daughter was laying. And there's bullet holes right here. And that's why I've been very pro-gun, and I've carried a gun for so long. A lot of people don't understand what it's like to go through it.
Up until this meeting, I had yet to meet anyone who could give me a concrete story about when they actually had to use a gun for self-defense.
Thank you so much. I'm so glad I got to meet you.
It didn't change my opinion of what I need to do for myself, but it definitely made me see that there are real, nice, everyday, average people that have been through these ordeals, and thank God they were able to defend themselves.
Pia's 30-day journey is almost over, and on her last day at the gun store, she has the chance to share what she's learned with a customer looking to buy a gun for self-defense.
I've never been in a gun store. This is my first time, and even thinking about buying a gun is new to me.
Did someone suggest it to you?
My sons.
Up until 3 weeks ago, I've never even held a gun. I've done all kinds of things that I never in a million years thought I would do. So we're actually
kind of in the same boat, because I never thought I'd be here.
So I can show you what I've shot and what I thought was easier and lighter. This one's much lighter.
This is kind of a big...
The first time I shot a rifle, I cried. So
It's kind of a big thing, you know? I mean, I never thought I'd be doing this. I'll tell you the truth.
Seeing as how emotional you are, you want to have some training.
Absolutely. I'm glad I came to the right place.
I'm glad you did too. Thank you so much. It's nice to meet you.
Wonderful to meet you.
I'm a pretty bad salesperson, huh?
After 4 weeks in America's gun culture, Pia's finally getting used to the sound of gunfire.
Well,
That feel a little different?
yeah, that's not as bad.
Not as bad?
I saw guns being used for so many different reasons, none of them being used for evil. Even though the gun represented evil to me in the beginning, I got to see people using it for skill and protection and
empowerment.
Good. Straight on.
It's Pia's last night with Ken and Zach, so she makes them a home-cooked meal to thank them for their hospitality.
And after everything that you have seen and done, what are your thoughts on the gun culture?
I got to see people living a totally opposite lifestyle from me and being happy living it. I apologize if I made it sound like my way is the only way.
You know, we agreed, you know, we don't want criminals having guns. And if our government comes up with something or our legislators come up with something that is going to help to solve that problem, which isn't going to completely restrict me from, you know, being able to do what I still like to do, then I don't have a problem with that.
I think that's a huge step for Ken to own up to something like that, and I think that I can take responsibility for changing his mind on that.
Now, to give you a little comfort, there are other hobbies I do besides just shooting. I do a bit of origami.
Oh my God, thank you, Zach. I just see so much potential in you. I want to give you a hug.
Pia's 30-day journey is coming to an end, and she's getting ready to head back home to Brockton.
Initially, I started this process saying that the only people that should have guns are cops and soldiers. However,
there needs to be a way to separate the law-abiding citizen and not take away their gun rights, but restrict it to an extent so that the wrong person does not get a gun.
So this is it. You get to go back to civilization. I'll have to find somebody new to argue with.
they don't make them like me out here, that's for sure.
No, they don't. So you need a hand carrying anything?
Yeah, definitely. After 30 days with Ken, he will be very happy to know that I do think he's a responsible gun owner. He practices what he preaches.
Enjoy your flight.
Thank you for everything.
I had fun.
Good, I'm glad you did.
I've got a lot of respect for Pia. To take something that she completely hates and to jump into it with both feet like she has, that takes great courage.
Good kid. Okay?
I will.
Bye-bye. Through this 30-day journey,
I've lived the life of a gun enthusiast.
it's been a very difficult but an amazing, absolutely incredible life experience.